I think there is a very common uh, misconception around STEM subjects, like not only math, but also programming and physics, that they are very hard subjects and very boring in general in all levels of education. So my question was regarding why do you think that is, and what can we, not necessarily us, but in general, can make about that? Yeah, so those two.
Yeah, I guess answering yourself. Well, first of all, I should say, if anyone wants to like leave because it was scheduled as 1 hour, like I know the feeling of being on a Zoom call like for a little bit longer than you intended. I wouldn't be offended at all. Secondly, to the question of, a lot of people seem to view math and physics as hard. Like, what can we do about that? I think it is hard, and like we shouldn't lie about that. And it might actually be counterproductive to kind of go and say like, oh, everyone like views physics as being really hard, but like from the right perspective, it can be easy. It's like it's definitely the case that you can do things to make it easier or like less hard, but just acknowledging that like it definitely is a challenge. And I think maybe metaphors with like sports can sometimes be helpful here, where if someone wants to get really good at like tennis or something like that, like everyone acknowledges that it's quite hard to do so and to become excellent at it. And that because it's hard, it requires a lot of time and maybe very specific kinds of training. Like you want to do, like make sure that you have good leg strength or good reactions or what have you. And sometimes the way that the training looks is going to be kind of boring. Like just doing squats is a very boring activity if you just like assess it for what it is, but that it's in the service of something that you want to get great at. Like that has a lot of parallels often physics, where like you want to acknowledge to the students that like, yeah, actually some of the time spent to become great at this, it kind of is boring. Like if you're inspired by the broader subject and you say, I really want to know how the world works, or I've seen a couple inklings of beauty that I'm a little bit addicted to, you're willing to push through that boring part because it's like developing a good skill and exercising the right muscle. But a fear I have actually with like the implicit message that I might leave in videos sometimes is that like it's always beautiful, because I just like cherry pick the stuff that I really like and that I think might do well on the platform or might inspire people, and I like just nicely show them these cherry picked lessons of like, oh, what a beautiful proof. Like when there's some terrible algebraic slog that's kind of necessary to show that something's true, I slog through it and I'm like, boy, am I never going to make a video on that because that was terrible, right? But that means you have this sort of selection filter for what even goes up there. And so to your question of what we can do, maybe just like be honest about that fact, and let people know that when others are really into it, like they're a physicist or they're just a student who's really nerdy about it, that it's not because it isn't hard for them or because they don't go through those slog parts, but it's sort of in spite of that, and that they seem to have some light at the end of the tunnel that makes them want to like do the metaphorical squats in that context, so that when the person is sitting there slogging through something that is kind of boring or is kind of hard, they don't think like, oh, I must be doing it wrong, right? And this is actually one thing I quite like about Khan Academy videos, is that it's so unedited that sometimes he's just like going through something for like 20 minutes. He's like, we got to carry this part over here. This expression is complicated. Maybe we should like spend some time simplifying it. That like makes it kind of boring. But then when you're the student working on the same problem and you're 20 minutes into it, like, oh, this doesn't mean I'm doing it wrong. Like this is how it's supposed to work. And having seen that, like by example in the form of Sal doing a really unedited video, I think has a pretty important place in like this whole sphere of how we communicate stuff.